Welcome, everybody. Today, I'm talking to Lindsay Simpson, who is the CEO and founder of 55 Redefined. Lindsay, welcome.
Thank you.
Perhaps you can start by telling us about 55 Redefined.
Of course, and thank you, Olivia. So, yes, 55 Redefined is a group of businesses that enable companies to attract, grow, and engage over 50s talent to come and work for them, and over 50s consumers to come and buy from them. We have three group companies. So Life Redefined is that consumer platform for go-getting over 50s, whether they're booking a holiday or organising a divorce or anything in between. And we have over 125,000 over 50s engaging with that business, and Richard Branson as the face to market there. We then have Jobs Redefined, which, as the name suggests, is a job board and talent acquisition platform for over 50s candidates to meet with age-inclusive employers. And then our final business, which is the one that's probably the most relevant for our conversation today, is Work Redefined. So that's where we look at that entire employee life cycle, or the reasons that corporates need to engage with over 50s as an audience and help them do it better.
Amazing. Wow. So this is a huge subject, but as you know, my audience is likely to be HR leaders, and they may well be candidates who are looking for work and maybe in that 50s plus bracket, but most likely they are responsible for all areas of the employee life cycle. And that means bringing people in, helping people to leave, and helping them to thrive in their working life, which, as you and I both know, is a very, very long time now. And people do not retire like they used to, perhaps at age 55. So why now, though? Why have you set this business up at this moment in time?
Yeah, of course. Well, the original idea, so I myself am not in my target demographic. So I am 45. I am childless, and that means that I am one of the growing statistics that is women that are choosing not to have children. And the reason that's relevant is that we have added 30 healthy years to life expectancy in the last century alone. So 50% of children born in the UK today will on average live to 103. So scary numbers. But then what's happening is that I am becoming the majority. So people are choosing not to have children, or if they are having families, they're having one or two children, not 5 and 6, which was the previous generation. So that has profound impacts if you are looking at the world of talent and workforces, which became very clear in the last 18 months as various countries released their census data. And what that showed us was what our workforce looked like in 20 years, because we could see the babies that had been born and therefore how many college leavers, graduates, etc. And the answer is that over the course of the next couple of decades, our working age population, so 16 to 60, is going to shrink by 25%, whilst in the exact same period, our over 60s population grows at over 40%. So we are rapidly aging, and aging faster than most economies, companies and individuals have kind of had time to draw breath and think about the impact.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the macro view. And if we just shrink that to now, you know, in our moment in time, people have undergone cataclysmic events in the last couple of years. Everybody's lived through COVID. Everybody is now navigating economic challenges that perhaps we haven't faced for the last few decades, with extremely low interest rates that many of us have come to rely on, right? And I'm the same sort of age as you. You know, I didn't have high interest rates, and mortgages and costs and all the other things mean that actually people who perhaps were going to retire perhaps can't retire. So is there a sense that not only long term we've got older workers, but people who had imagined that they might spend the next decade or two not working in the same way might need to rethink their futures?
Yeah, you're quite right. So finances do play a role in terms of the need for people to work longer, but it has quite intersectionality in the sense that it's more of a problem for women actually. So as a woman enters their 5th decade, their pension pot is typically 39% lower than their male equivalent. So their ability to earn and continue to earn into their 50s and 60s and beyond is more important to sustain that longer life for women and other intersectional people within society. But actually, the reality is that money isn't the driver here. So if we look at wealth distribution, not just in the UK, but across most Western organisations and countries, you will see that 75% of the wealth is held by 50 to 70-year-olds. So what actually is happening is that you've got almost 2 category of over 50s talent. So you have those that could absolutely afford to retire, and there's still probably another 5 years left of people with final salary pension schemes that are in their 50s and 60s. So they can afford to retire, but they don't want to. They don't feel anything like their parents. They don't feel ready to retire. The concept of doing nothing for the next 30, 40 years without purpose and without challenge fills them with fear. And so you've got that affluent group that want to continue to work, but they want a different kind of work. And they are the people that will take pay cuts. So 89% will take a pay cut to retrain, change industry, do something more purposeful. And they're also the people that are looking for that different type of work. So how can it be more flexible? So I don't have to retire to go on the long holiday. I can just interblend my life and work for the next 20, 30 years. The group you're talking about, I was just going to say around I suppose the people that then need to work, again, you've got 2 categories. So you've got people the 25% that don't have the wealth that absolutely do need to find engaging and purposeful and well-paid roles to sustain them for longer, to sustain that extra 30 years of living that they're hopefully going to enjoy. But you also have a new category emerging. So, for example, divorce is peaking at people in their 50s. And so you have people that are separating, starting again with their new assets and new life. And so we'll see perhaps, a midlife woman who has perhaps not worked for 15, 20 years, has been bringing up their family. You would deem them as comfortable from a lifestyle perspective. But when they go through divorce and they haven't got a career and they get a house, well, that doesn't pay for the house, and it doesn't certainly pay for living and life for the next 20, 30 years. So there is a huge demand for reskill and apprentice type opportunities for people to enter the workforce because they financially need that.
Yeah. And there are 2 things that you've said there that I'd like to pick up on. One of them is the fact that there are people who don't want to retire. So they're already in work, wherever they might be, and they have no desire, to sail off into the sunset because, that's a lot of sunset left. And there are those who need to re-enter the workforce, perhaps. So we've got job seekers there, but also a concept that I don't feel the working world in its entirety is ready for. So we are used to thinking about you start your career, you climb the career ladder, up, you go right to the top, and then you retire.
Yeah.
From what I'm hearing from you, that's not the case. And yet our organisations perhaps aren't ready for that sort of peak. And then what do you do with people who have peaked and want to carry on? How do we explain that that's not failure? That's progress in a new way. We need new ways of defining this.
We absolutely do. In fact, what we need to do is retire the term retirement because it serves no purpose for what businesses need. So, if we think about that shrinking working age population, if you're a business that's trying to grow over the next 20 years, the only customers and the only talent pools that are growing are your over 50s demographics. So, ignore it at your peril because you will be just fighting in a shrinking pond for both of those subsets. So you absolutely can't ignore it. And you're quite right. We invented retirement as a post-war construct when people had 3 to 4 years of life expectancy into retirement. It was never invented as a 40-year existence post-work. And so what we're seeing is, we commission quite a lot of independent research, Olivia. And in fact, I'd be very happy for your audience if they wanted to get any copies of it. We have free reports available about the unretirement uprising, ageism in the workforce, and different things that are creating barriers for both businesses and individuals. But one of the interesting trends is that of that research, 56% of over 50s do not want to retire by the age of 65. And a quarter never want to retire at all. So want to find a mechanism that they can continue to work into their 80s and beyond as normal. But we then find that 2/3 of businesses, so if we look at it the other lens, through the hirers lens, they will only consider talent in that demographic to do the jobs that they've always done. So they don't look at that person as they would do perhaps a 20, 21-year-old thinking, well, I can train you and you can start again and I'm looking at you through fresh eyes for the next 20 years. They make assumptions that I only have 1 or 2 years left of you, or you've been doing this for the last 10 years, therefore that's all you can do. Or you're at that seniority and pay, therefore you must want that seniority and pay, where again, 89% will take a pay cut to change industry. So we see that there is a huge disconnect between what candidates in this demographic are saying they want to do, which is do purposeful activity, work more flexibly, take less demanding roles as they continue to age so that they can live their life for longer and continue to add value at work. But we then see businesses have a number of structurally ageist policies and practices. And unfortunately, all of our data points to the fact that the most, and the reason I'm here and interested in talking to your audience, is that the most ageist department within the corporates that we research is the HR function. And so the function that you are looking to be the custodian of inclusion is actually the gatekeeper for recruitment and for learning and development and for growth. And so we see that the age of the individuals within the HR function has a huge swing and bias. So if we were presenting a candidate that was aged over 50 to a recruiter in an organisation who's aged 25 to 30, they are almost 40% less likely to present that candidate's CV to the hiring manager than a colleague of theirs who's aged 40 to 45. So they are subjecting their own biases around what they think the company, not because they're ageist, but they think, companies don't want this demographic. Nobody's going to tell me that they're up and coming talent. Nobody's going to tell me that we want more middle-aged men, and so they are screening them out, and they're screening them out of recruitment and opportunities and development and sidestepping. And that's going to create a big issue for business.